I was a junior executive in a large corporation. I earned a decent salary, but I could be terminated at any moment. These days, however, I would never be terminated. I wouldn't even be dismissed. I wouldn't be let go. No, I would be restructured due to financial considerations. It would be because of revenue shortfalls, you understand, don't you, Jason? Yes, naturally. Please vacate the premises within the hour. Sam here will supervise your exit. Goodbye, and best wishes. That's how I imagined it. It hadn't happened yet. I was only 26 years old after all. What I really spent the year waiting for was my holiday bonus. If it was substantial, then I'd have had a good year. If it was minimal, then the good year was fueled by credit card debt that I would need to chip away at gradually. The holiday bonus meant everything. I was casual acquaintances with Murray, who was in my social circle. He was British, I believe. Is there anyone who isn't British and named Murray? The name is so unfashionable in America that it's laughable. Plus, he had a distinct accent. I suppose Australian was another possibility. And I've heard there are people in New Zealand too, but don't they usually wear all black? Maybe. Murray prefers beige. Murray's wife Anne, however, was American. She was very American, and she had a strict religious background. I tolerated Murray, who was an insufferable, arrogant fool, mainly because I liked spending time with Anne. I could tell she enjoyed my company as well. As a result, the three of us were somewhat close. Anne was a hopeful stage performer. I had no idea just how determined she was as an actress until the events of this story unfolded. She'd had one show off-Broadway and several on off-Broadway down in Greenwich Village. There were two in Brooklyn as well, and even one in New Haven, which is kind of a big deal. Murray and I had attended every production she'd been in. She's a talented actress, no doubt, but unfortunately for her, talented actresses in New York are a dime a dozen. 2 years ago, she landed a role in a Christmas-themed adult comedy. It was the most significant part she'd had to date, even if it was only a supporting role, not the lead. To take this part, she had to throw her strict religious background out the window. When it came to a compelling acting opportunity versus her religious values, it was an easy choice for Anne. She's determined, and those religious constraints definitely went out the window. I was impressed, and in the adult comedy she portrayed a Santa's helper who couldn't say no. There were a few somewhat outrageous simulated scenes, and at times it looked surprisingly convincing. It was always amusing. Anne told me that she would never tell this to her husband Murray, but she really enjoyed kissing the male actors, which she had to do in various scenes, and she got turned on every time they felt her up, right there on stage. The actors were apologetic. They did it because the script called for it. They explained it to her, and every one of them apologized to her for having to do it. Finally, Anne called all the men together. She declared, "Please stop apologizing for your roles feeling me up. It's embarrassing for me to admit this, and I don't know why, but I like it. I like it especially when I'm on stage in front of a live audience. Let's stop worrying and just enjoy performing the play. It's a good play. The playwright Jay Blaine seems to have talent." Anne told me the male actors were surprised, but after she made her declaration, they all applauded. After her little speech, the actors got more and more into it, and they also seemed more relaxed about having to do it. She responded with giggles, and the director loved it. During the simulated scene, Anne's low-cut wide neck blouse would fall open, and you could see almost everything. The men happily partook of the opportunity, and Anne gave out little soft moans to encourage them to do so. She told me later the moans came naturally, but when she saw their effects, she was glad that she moaned. She raised the volume of the moans. They were still real, apparently. But now the audience could hear them too. Anne's little speech allowed everyone to perform better. The director spoke with the playwright, and a new scene was written into the play. In the new scene, the actors' hands were instructed not only to massage Anne's character's breasts, but also down there. Anne loved it, and it allowed her to perform better. I told her to Google exhibitionism. The play was seasonal, and it was performed off-Broadway, but it was a huge success, and Anne became noticed as an actress with promise. The director told her there was a new Jay Blaine play in the works, and she was his candidate to play the star. Anne was happy, thinking that the promise of the director was the best Christmas present she had ever received. Besides her talent, what Anne had going for her were her looks. In a word, she was gorgeous. She was not gorgeous in the sense of one of those models on the cover of a glossy magazine. Those women are eye candy, sure, but ultimately boring. It's what behind the eyes that makes a woman truly beautiful. Anne's face, while being hands down beautiful, is also interesting. She's smart, and her eyes sparkle with intelligence, and they twinkle with hints of mischief. Anne's pretty face, her luscious hair cascading down her neck just the right amount, her body to die for, all supplement her eyes, and that's what renders her beautiful. Sometimes I felt as if deep down Anne was a wild woman, being held in check only by the religious reserve she learned in her childhood. Anne and I had been friends for quite a few years. I used to act, and we met at the Yale Drama School. I had some talent, I think, but not enough. Anne, however, is a natural. Indeed, it took me a while to discern who she really was, to find the genuine woman behind all the disguises she would assume and hide behind, with the alacrity of a chameleon. Once I found the real Anne, I was hooked. Sadly, though, by then Anne was hooked too. She married one of my close friends, Murray Smithson, the same Murray who is my colleague. I had even introduced them. Idiot that I am. I had never even taken Anne to bed. I always wondered what it would be like to have done so. At least the three of us, Anne, Murray, and me, stayed good friends. We all three treasured our friendship. I found comfort in another sweet woman with a hot body, Martha Sunderson. Martha, too, was a sweetheart. She did not have the salt of the earth soul of pure sweetness that Anne possessed. Instead, she had an edge to her, coming from some deeply buried trauma that manifested itself perhaps as alienation. This appealed to me in a major way. I never did learn what buried trauma lurked in Martha's past, but who cares? If she wants me to know sometime, she'll tell me, I'm sure. Martha loved me, and she was a tigress in bed, the way only a woman who's alienated can be. She was, that is, until another of my friends, Steve, stole her heart in a way that I could not. When Martha left me, I spiraled down into a deep depression. Had it not been for Murray and Anne, I might still be in it. After all the fun, Martha would lounge around wearing nothing. We would talk. We would talk about everything and anything. Politics, the new exhibits at the museums, which new movies we wanted to see, and what we had planned for dinner. I loved those times, and Martha told me I would have been her true love if I could have given myself completely to her. She and I both knew that was not going to happen until the torch I held for Anne, now buried, was buried 6 feet deep. As it was, the torch was barely covered with dirt and twigs. It was at risk of bursting into flames at a moment's notice. Martha simply could not commit to a man who still carried a torch for another woman. She had a point. Now I was alone, having somehow blown it with the two most wonderful women I had ever known, and probably ever would know. Luckily, I was never one for self-pity. The world is a big place, and it is chock full of women. That's what I told myself every night as I went to sleep all alone. Maybe I should get a dog. No way I could ever deal with a cat. Anne has a great body. She's thin but not too thin. Her legs are not toothpicks, but rather they are shapely and long. She has a tiny waist and a great rack. Excuse me for being crude. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, you see. One play she was in had her cast in a short skirt, and I enjoyed that play a lot. Murray and I sat in the front row, slightly below the stage, and several times I could almost, but not quite, see her underwear. I did enjoy seeing practically all of her legs. I kept my drool within my mouth, and I take some pride in such small accomplishments. I saw her once in a tub bathing suit, and I still cannot get over the memory of her legs as she walked around the pool. Wow. When Anne is in between acting gigs, she waitresses at one of the many high-end bars in Manhattan. I've been there, and she's waiting for me. I could overhear her speaking with some other customers seated nearby, and in time-honored New York tradition, she calls all men sweetheart. It's nice to be called sweetheart by a pretty woman, even if it is meaningless since it is applied across the board. Nevertheless, I live for it. When she's waitressing, like any good actress, Anne dresses the part. She wears miniskirts and maximal cleavage. Given her generous endowment, this gives the male customers quite a nice view. She always bends over to hear their orders, and then again when she brings the drinks or whatever. Men always, without exception, take the look. I too have taken the look, I confess. Hell, I'm a man, it cannot be helped. The sight is like a Rubens painting. I wanted to ask her why she does that. Why does she let men take such outrageous liberties with her body? I felt I already knew the answer. It's for the tips, you moron. The more they can get away with, the bigger the tips. So why ask if you know the answer? I had to admit, however, that it turned me on to see strange men do that to my lovely friend. Anne was not alone. Some of the other waitresses behaved the same way. The bar was way downtown, and it catered to the masters of the universe who worked on Wall Street. These were horny, lonely men who used their position as customers, bestowing nice tips to exploit these poor women, my Anne included. What puzzled me is that none of the women involved seemed to mind. Not even a little. Anne was always quick to point out that it is harmless fun to give the men something to look at, and it gooses the tips. She never mentioned the groping under her miniskirt, however. Being a gentleman, neither did I. After all, being a thespian, Anne has to be accustomed to being checked out, and possibly also to being groped. I've heard stories about what actresses sometimes feel they have to do to get the great parts. It's not pretty. It's all part of the job. Of course, I seriously doubted Anne would ever do, or ever have to do, those types of things, involving intimate favors, just for an acting gig. There were pitfalls, however, to Anne's acting career. One night I was hanging out with Murray. It was getting close to Christmas, and Jay Blaine had his new play done. I heard they were casting for it. Murray and I were watching the NY Giants lose yet another football game, drowning our sorrows in perhaps a few too many drinks, when suddenly Anne walked in, crying. I had never before seen Anne crying, and she was truly sobbing. She was also home early, so something had clearly happened. Murray said with sweet sympathy in his voice, "You didn't get the part?" I inferred she had been at an audition. "No," she said in between sobs. "I got the part all right. It's the part itself that's the problem." "Too small? No speaking role?" Murray helpfully asked. "I got the lead. I'm the star of the play," Anne said, punctuated with sniffles. "I don't understand. What's the problem?" Murray asked. Anne burst into wailing sobs and ran to her bedroom, slamming the door. "I'd better go," I said, feeling that this was a problem best handled by a husband, and him alone. But Murray asked me to stay. "She'll cry less and pull herself together faster if you are here," he said. This is one of several reasons that I think that Murray is a bastard. He wanted me there in the hope that my presence could enable him to minimize his efforts to calm Anne down and to learn what the problem was. He hoped my presence would force Anne to pull herself together. He even told me that himself. Probably he was right. Anne was wasted on Murray, who in New York parlance was a nebbish, at least in my opinion. She clearly saw things in him that I did not. They were obviously in love, and I was just a friend after all. My best working theory is that Murray is big as hell, otherwise I just could not see the attraction. Maybe I would see it if I had been a woman. Eventually Murray came out of the bedroom. I could still hear Anne sniffling, even through the closed door. "You were right, you should go," Murray said. Seeing the look on his face, I did not ask questions. I simply left. The next couple of days, Murray called in sick at work. People get sick. It happens. I could not help but wonder, however, if this could be related to Anne's hysterical sobbing the other day. Murray, of course, returned to work after a few days, but he looked like a wreck. I inquired, but he brushed me off, not wanting even to talk. I had to watch the next Giants game alone. Yes, they lost yet again. Well, it wasn't the end of the world. I had other friends besides Murray. A few weeks later, I got a call from Anne. She told me she missed me, and why don't I drop by the bar tonight? There had been a small sartorial change in her cocktail waitress outfit, and she wondered if I would even notice, and if so, would I approve? I told her I'd be there, no problem. I went over to the bar where Anne works. She works there when she is in between acting gigs. She apparently had in fact landed a starring role, her first, in some play. But maybe it had not. Yet started rehearsals? That could explain why she was working at the bar. It was late, close to 10:30 p.m., and her shift typically ends around 11 p.m. At first glance, all I noticed was that the waitresses were all wearing red felt hats. It was due to a management requiring an enforced Christmas spirit. Other than the hat, Anne was wearing the same outfit she always wore. She wore a low-cut blouse showing off her cleavage, and a miniskirt which showed off her legs. I was puzzled. Well, anyway, I was there, so I decided to have my usual drink and to enjoy myself. I got lucky, and Anne was my waitress, and I tried mightily not to look down her blouse. But I'm human, and very much a man, so my effort not to look was only partially successful. "Take a look, Jason. I know men like to do that. Everyone else here tonight has enjoyed the view." and then she began to cry. She quickly got a grip, straightened up, and asked me if I wanted my usual. I nodded and off she went, her lovely hips wiggling a bit as she walked away. I called her over. I needed another look. Anne knew what was going on, and she said, "What'll it be, sweetheart? Maybe more me?" And while she was saying it, she leaned forward in an exaggerated way, saying sotto voce, "Enjoy the view, Jason. I was hoping you would come in tonight. Take as long a look as you want." Boy, did I. She's Murray's wife, I kept telling myself. That helped me to keep my hands where they belonged. Anne blew me a kiss. Anne came back to me twice, first with the drink she gave me, and I enjoyed another spectacular view. The second time, I asked her why she was not wearing a bra. "I'm practicing being an exhibitionist. It's for the play I'm to star in. I've got to get into the role. I need to understand my character," she said. And she smiled at me and walked away. This time her hips had an exaggerated wiggle, I'm fairly sure. I felt like asking her if it wasn't the case that all actresses were exhibitionists, at least to some extent. But thank goodness I managed to hold my tongue, for once. I drank my drink, and I left. I went home. The doorman at my building called around midnight to tell me a Miss Anne was here to see me. Should he send her up? Luckily I was still dressed, and so of course was Anne, still in her cocktail waitress outfit and with her eyes all red. She was sent up to my apartment on the 12th floor. I wondered if the doorman thought I had ordered a hooker. I hoped not. I opened the door and she walked in. "I thought you might like a private show. Want to look up my skirt or down my blouse? What you would like, Jason?" And then she began to cry. She began to sob, actually. "What's wrong, Anne?" I asked, bracing myself for an answer. "The big thing or the little thing or both?" Anne asked. "I don't know what either thing is. Whatever you want to tell me is fine. I'm here for you, Anne," I said. That got Anne crying again, but when she pulled herself together, she blurted it out. "Murray and I flew to Las Vegas last weekend. I won $50 at the slots. We got a divorce." "What?" I exclaimed in pure shock. Anne is a sweetheart and a babe, and I don't know if she's good in bed, but she is so wonderful in every way that I can personally verify that who cares anyway? Why would Murray not want to keep her forever? "That's my Christmas present. I got a divorce for Christmas," Anne said, the bitterness dripping from her voice. It was 3 weeks until Christmas. "Hug me, Jason. I need a hug. I need your love. Hug me tight," she said. I complied. She was sobbing on my shoulder as I, to my everlasting shame, was enjoying that. After about 10 minutes of hugging, her sobs dwindled down to little whimpers, and she pulled away from me. Maybe she had cheated on him? Hard to believe, actually. She loves him too much. Even so, Murray is a good man, and he should be able to forgive a transgression. Anne is young, after all. She's only 23, and she is as hot as a firecracker. Doubtless men come on to her all the time. Maybe it was not that. Maybe Murray had cheated on her. No, that could not be. He's not the type. He is pure nebbish. I gave up. It did not matter that I had given up guessing, because Anne told me. Murray said it was him or the play. If I refused to turn down the part, which is my big breakthrough role, the role that will make me a star, our marriage is over, Anne said, keeping it together. He never liked my acting career anyway. She was channeling anger now, and that was holding back the tears. "This makes no sense," I said. "What about his size? You could give that up?" "What on earth are you talking about?" Anne asked. She shrugged, probably thinking I had lost my mind. "You would understand everything if you knew what I do in the play," she said. "This role will make me the talk of the town. It will give me notoriety. If I do it well, it's my ticket to stardom. A girl rarely gets the chance at a role like this one." "What do you do? What role is that good?" I innocently asked. I knew from earlier that she was probably playing the part of an exhibitionist. "At one point, there's an adult scene. It has to be there. The play would not work without it," she said. "Lots of the theater has these scenes," I said hopefully. "Blade Runner 2049, The Counselor, Gone Girl, Superbad, Caligula." "Caligula is off limits, you moron," Anne said, almost spitting as she said it. "And those are movies, where things are faked, with stunt doubles, and not in front of a live audience night after night. There's no comparison. You know that, Jason. You're an actor, for God's sake." It's true. I had tried acting, but I never got beyond the extras rubric. I was part of the mob in Julius Caesar one time. I'm a good dancer, so most of the time I was one of those anonymous dancers you see in some stage productions. I did get a few speaking parts, but they were always minor, and they were few and far between. I thought I did my few roles well. Apparently, however, it was not enough to get me success. I gave up my acting career to become a boring junior executive, and I am boring par excellence. I am both boring and I am bored. Nevertheless, it pays well. It's a career. It was the mature thing to do. Maturity is often boring, it seems to me. I do boring well. I had also tried writing plays. I was better at that than at acting, and some of my plays were even performed commercially. That was nice for my ego, but it's not a way to earn a living. I thought of an example. Okay, on stage there is hair. The entire cast goes nude, I offered. Yeah, that has nudity. Name one with more than nudity, Jason, Anne said, almost accusingly, and certainly aggressively. I could not name one. Suddenly I understood. I understood everything. What about Les Liaisons Dangereuses, I offered, never knowing just when to give up. There's no nudity in that play, Anne said. I was beginning to have some idea about her new starring role and what it might require of her. There could be with the right director. Anyway, your new role, where you're a star, involves some on-stage nudity, I tentatively asked. This play I had to see. Anne nodded. Go on, she said. Go on? I asked. Anne nodded. I was flummoxed. I guessed, simulated act 2, I offered. Anne shook her head no, and she began to cry. Jason, if you were married, and your wife, your true love, were an actress, and she had this breakthrough role, truly the chance of a lifetime, would you stand in her way? Anne asked. No, of course not, I said. What if that same breakthrough role involved a real act on stage, night after night in front of live audiences? Would you let her do it? Anne asked. Or would you feel it humiliated and debased her, and it would embarrass you? I was not prepared for this question. I did not answer it, but I now knew exactly what was going on. I decided to answer her question with a question. The theater portrays life, I said. Intimacy is part of life. It's an important part. It's one of our life forces. Why not portray it on stage? It makes sense. I thought for a minute. I decided to take a gamble. What exactly do you mean by real act? I asked. Well, I'm nude, first of all, Anne said. She was surprisingly calm, now that she was describing the play. Okay, I said. That's part of acting sometimes these days. Nudity is everywhere. It's not so shocking anymore. I guess it's especially the case for women, right? Times have changed. Hell, girls send nude selfies to their boyfriends, and sometimes even worse than nude. Nudity is not the big deal it used to be. Yes, I suppose so, Anne said. The play is about exhibitionism and voyeurs, at least in part. And there's a scene with a man watching me, through the window. I don't know that he's watching. He leaves the window, he knocks on my door. I put on a robe, answer the door, and, well, it's complicated. But the upshot is that he comes inside. The two of us get to talking, Anne continued, and I learn that he saw me, and he asks for a private show. After a long and brilliantly written, I might add, discussion, I give him one. As I'm pleasuring myself, he undresses, and here is where it gets a bit dicey. Anne paused. I was on the edge of my seat. She knew it too. She really is an actress. She had me eating out of her hand, and she was making me wait just long enough for it to be totally tantalizing. I kept my cool and waited for her to continue, but I could not hide the lump in my pants, and Anne was staring right at it. She knew what she was doing, all right. I'm too embarrassed to continue, Anne said. Anne, I'm going to come to see the play. Sooner or later I'll know what's going on. It's okay, we're friends, I said. No, I can't put it in words. I can't say it aloud. I just can't. Not for you, Jason. You're my best friend and my only male friend, she said. Worse, you're hopelessly heterosexual. Hopelessly heterosexual? What was Anne getting at, I wondered. Let's act it out, I said. No talking required. If you have a script, I can read my lines and we can act it out, I said. You just want to see me naked, Anne said, and she giggled. Stay dressed, I can imagine, I said. I'll bet you can, she said. You treated yourself to enough good looks down my blouse at the bar. That's why you go to it, isn't it? It's surely not for the rocky wood you always order. Seeing my confusion, Anne said, That's what I told the bartender. I did not answer, but I blushed, which in Anne's mind and in mine amounted to an answer. At least you never put your hands on my legs. That's so gross. And before you ask, Jason, I let men do it for the tips. I know you saw men doing it to me earlier tonight, Anne said. Suddenly Anne blurted out, I just got a text. They totaled my tips tonight. I doubled my previous record. It's all because, I waitressed commando. And of course because I let men take a few liberties, you might say. You were without underwear too? I asked. I was incredulous. Now I definitely knew where the hands of those men who felt her up under her skirt had actually gone. Jesus, Anne had calmly let a man finger her in the bar while I was watching. She had shown no reaction. What an actress. Yes, as I said, I'm doing a crash course on being an exhibitionist, but it goes beyond exhibitionism. In the play, I'm also a woman with loose morals, a woman who's easy. Such traits do not come naturally to me. I have to work on it, Anne said. Anyway, yes, let's act the sleazy parts of the play out. You play the voyeur and I'll be the woman in my role. I'll be the star of the play, Anne said, displaying just a bit of pride as she relished the word star. We'll use your screen as my bedroom wall and window, and you can look around it to watch me, Anne said. Since my studio apartment consists of only one large room, I have a 3-panel tall screen that artificially, and only symbolically, divides it into 2 rooms. Anne got on the bed, and I stood behind the screen. Let's start on page 78, Anne said. I need one of your largest t-shirts, please. I gave her one. I stood behind the screen and I flipped through to page 78. I peeked around the screen, and the room was empty. Anne used the bathroom door for her entrance. She came into the room and slowly began to undress. Anne removed her blouse, standing there in her miniskirt. She bent over and removed her high heels. Next, she took off her skirt, and there she was, standing before me in her underwear. What a gorgeous sight. Anne turned around so that her backside was facing me. Even looking at her backside, her breasts are gorgeous. Now Anne was in my apartment, only a few feet from me with her back to me. I glanced at the script and she was following the stage directions perfectly. She picked up the t-shirt from the floor and she slipped it on. That was the end of the scene. What do you think? Anne said. I don't know what to say, I said. Anne was now facing me, naked under my t-shirt. My t-shirt was just barely long enough to cover her privates. Are you okay with doing that on stage? Exposing yourself to an audience? Anne ignored my question. I think you thought it was hot, didn't you? Anne said, smiling sweetly, relentlessly staring at the lump in my pants. Damn straight, I said. Did I look pretty? I was trying to smile. Did you ever even look at my face? Anne said. I blushed, looking at my feet. It's okay, Anne said. When you see the next scene that we're going to rehearse, you'll be flabbergasted, I assure you. Also, you have a speaking part in this one. Christ, Anne, every single man watching the play is going to be hard after that last scene. It's the hottest scene I've ever seen on stage. Oh, Jason, that's just because you know me and you've always lusted after me. Don't think I don't know. I know it very well. I've enjoyed your lustful attention, by the way. Girls like it when men they like lust after them. Well, I should not speak for all girls. This girl likes it. I can assure you, however, that the jaded New York audience won't be nearly as excited as you are. You know that. As for the next scene, well, Anne said. Anne continued. Jason, turn to page 182. This scene takes place much later in the play. Quite a bit has happened in the interim. You're again outside my window, but now you've arranged to meet me, and we have even become casual friends. Now get behind the screen. I meekly complied. I turned to page 182. I was peeking through the window, just like I was doing in the other scene we acted out. Okay, Anne said. This scene begins when you peek around the screen. Let your mouth fall open, she said. I saw the stage instructions told my character to do exactly that in the script, and I complied. It was easy to let my mouth fall open, given what I saw. Anne was sitting up on the bed, pillows propped up behind her back for comfort. Her legs were spread wide, and she was stark naked. She was completely nude. I was in shock. Anne, I exclaimed. No, Jason, follow the script. You silently watch in rapt attention. Now watch and be silent. You are the voyeur, okay? I shut up and stood there, hidden behind my screen, with my head peeking around the edge, watching Anne looking like a seductive goddess, sitting on my bed. Her fingers had completed their slow journey down her body. Her breathing was beginning to change when suddenly she said, "Ring, ring." I looked at the script, and sure enough, her phone was supposed to ring. It was right there in the script. Anne brought her phone to her ear, and she said, "Hello?" Anne kept right on. It surprised me when she said, "Hello, Dad." She silently gasped as she did it. No, Dad, I'm just resting in bed. Yes, I'm being careful with the New York dating scene. Anne paused, then she spoke again into the phone. Dad, that was in college. I was drunk, and anyway, it was for charity. I was only 19 then. It seems like ages ago. I'm 23 now, and I know better. Yes, I know much better. I will never do anything like that again. Anne paused the dialogue as the script instructed. No, Dad, it was only 4 men. Yes, plus 1 woman, and it was only for 24 hours. Remember, the price for my slavery was $900, and it all went to the soup kitchen. It's time for you to get over it, and stop watching the videos, please. Put Mom on, please. When her mom got on the phone, they slowed down, gradually stopping. Yes, Mom. I'm eating well. Don't worry. Well, there is one man. His name is James, and he hasn't yet asked me out. But he will. When Anne told her mom about James, her fingers got busy again. Because girls can tell when a man is interested. You know that, Mom. Use your memory. I know you're trying to forget. I'm sorry. Yes, thanks for calling. I love you too. Oh, okay, put him on then. She tossed the phone on the bed and went to town with both hands for a good 5 or 6 minutes more. Eventually, Anne collapsed on the bed. Jesus, I thought. I had just seen my Anne, naked, Jill off to fruition. Once Anne recovered, she asked, "How did I do? Did you like the scene?" I got so carried away I thought you were really speaking to your dad. You have incestuous desires for him, don't you? Wow, I've never seen anything even half that hot, I said. Jason, get a grip. It's my character who has a thing for her dad, not me. For me, the idea is gross. Well, you were totally convincing. I even thought that you were really on the phone. My God, Anne, what a great actress you are. You're not actually going to that on stage, are you? Anne was smiling. She was wearing the t-shirt again. So, you liked it? Do you think it's too much for the stage? Is it too outlandish? Too outré, as the French would say? The French should know. Anne, I loved it. I will never ever forget this. I have never before been this hard, I said, gesturing towards the tent in my pants. As for the stage, it's pushing the limits, that's for sure. Are you really okay doing this in front of a live audience? I asked. I don't know. At first I was sure I could not do this. I was going to turn down the part. It's asking a lot. Recently, however, I've been practicing being an exhibitionist. I'm getting more into my character in the play. I'm beginning to understand her need for exhibitionism. I'm gradually becoming my character. Anne continued, That's why I'm practicing being an exhibitionist. I'm trying really hard to get into this woman's character. I did not tell you this, but in this scene, my character. Suzanne knows her voyeur James is watching her. At this point in the play they've met. He has not yet confessed to watching her, and she has not confessed to putting on shows for him. What's interesting is that they both know the other knows. The play is full of intrigue. It's really beautifully written. Want to do one more scene? Anne said rather coquettishly. In some sense, this one is the most outrageous of all. Anne, your self-pleasuring scene cannot be topped. You know you're supposed to finish within only 3 minutes at the end, I said. I had just noticed that stage direction. I know, I'm working on that. I want it to be real. I don't want to fake it. Did it look real to you? The director says I can have some leeway in however long it takes, so long as it will be authentic, Anne asked nervously. It did not just look real. I'm sure it was real. I know it was real, I said. Nobody could have faked that. Anne smiled at me. Her smile just then melted me into a puddle on the floor. Then it dawned on me. The director is requiring you to have a real one while performing on stage, night after night, I asked, incredulous. Anne smiled at me, and she nodded. Her eyes were twinkling. There was much about Anne that I did not understand. I think it will be fun. Having you as the voyeur just now helped me to make it real. I wanted it to be real for you, Jason. Just for you, Anne said. This got me thinking, and thinking fast. One more scene, Jason, okay? Anne asked. I nodded. Okay, in this scene I am naked for a 3rd time, but I pull down a shade because my voyeur, you, is now in the apartment with me. The audience watches our shadows through the shade, which one can easily see through. At least it does provide some deniability. Deniability, I asked. Yes, in this scene, Jason, we do it. We do? You and me, for real? For real, Anne said, and she paused. It was probably for effect. It had one too. The playwright wrote for us to simulate it, and I have tried to do it with the male lead. We tried everything and we continually failed. The director asked the playwright to drop the scene, but he or she refused. He or she? Who is the playwright? I asked. Someone named Jay Blaine. Nobody has met him or her except the director. Apparently, he is very secretive. Brilliant, obviously, but shy to a fault. Or for some reason, perhaps the inevitable notoriety this play will bring, he is a ghost. My guess is Jay Blaine is not even his real name, or her real name, but who knows. Anyway, the point is, we have to do the scene. Is there a solution? I asked. Yes, we found one in rehearsal a few days after my divorce. We decided to do it for real. Anne let that sink in, watching my face closely. You with the male lead? For real? I dumbly repeated. You're going to do that at every performance? Anne nodded, studying me intensely. We'll do it 6 nights a week and twice on Sundays. We have not yet done it. I told the director I need time to come to terms with it. He's very understanding. This is theater in the extreme. You are some fantastic thespian, Anne. I'm impressed, I said. My head was reeling. Then it occurred to me. The male lead will have to do it on command every night. Can he do that? I wondered about that too, Anne said. He told me that he worked in the adult industry when he was younger, and he can still do most everything. He also said that I'm so hot that it will never be a problem. Anne was giggling as she finished speaking. For some reason I suddenly felt intimidated. I did not say anything about that, though. Oh yes, Anne added. He's disease-free. The director made both of us have tests. And Anne giggled some more. I am too, of course. Also, I'm on the pill, so pregnancy is not an issue. I will have to practice with his understudy too, Anne said. She was eerily calm as she spoke. And now you and I are going to act out the scene. Can you do what is expected of you? Can you do your part? As Anne spoke, she slowly, tantalizingly slowly, pulled my t-shirt off her luscious body. You said you have not done it yet, Anne, I said, and I know I'm terrified. There are things you do not know about me, Jason, Anne said. Tell me, I replied. Anne stood still, her t-shirt above her head, as if she were suddenly paralyzed. I enjoyed the view. She must have been lost in thought. Anne came to a decision, pulled off the t-shirt, stood there naked in front of me, giving me a full frontal, and she said, Jason, I'm inexperienced. Now do you understand? You were married to Murray, I said. There's no way. You do know what the word means, right? I don't understand at all. We never did it. Murray and I could never, well, I can't really say it. I loved Murray, and he loved me. But let's just say we never expressed our love that way. I'm not going to try to explain it. Let's leave it at that, okay? Anne said. Her voice was trembling. Will you be my first, Jason? I need experience before I do it with the male lead and his understudy. Don't you agree? And I want to get the experience with someone I trust. I want to get it with someone who cares for me, with someone I care for, Anne said. She was blushing as she spoke. Oh, hell, Jason, I'll just say it. I want you to make love to me. Can you do that for me? I know you care for me. I also know, however, that you love Martha. She's with Steve, so she is taken. She's not an option for you, Jason, and you know that. Can you find it within your heart to do this for me? Anne was holding back tears, I could tell. I know it's a lot to ask a person. If someone asked me this, I'd slap him hard and storm out of the room. It must seem to you like this request it's coming out of the blue. I'm just hoping you care enough for me to help me out by making love with me. I feel horrible to ask such a thing of you, Anne continued. Now she was holding back tears. A single tear rolled down her beautiful cheek. I was incredulous. I let Anne have a good cry. I held her as she cried. All we have to do is to act out the scene. We'll do it the way the playwright wrote it. Do you want to read it first? Anne said. There's no need, I said. I know, Anne said. I've known from the start you wrote the play. You're a genius, Jason. What? How did you know? I was shocked. Jason, maybe you do not remember, but a long time ago you advised me on how to pick a pseudonym. I remembered your advice. Apparently you follow your own advice. Your grandmother's maiden name is Jane Blaine. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I can add 2 + 2, Anne said. Now will you do the scene with me, for real? I'm dying here. Yes, it will be easy, Anne. I love you and I want you. I always have, I said. I quickly read over the script. I did not need to, of course, but even I can forget what I wrote at times. I got Anne my bathrobe and she put it on. Then I left my apartment to go out to the hall. I rang the bell. Anne walked to the door, opened it, and said, "Hello, James. What brings you by at this late hour?" Reading from the script, I replied, "I had to see you, Suzanne. I was thinking about what you said in the cafe yesterday, and what you told me about your father. I think I can help." Anne and I read through the lines until we got to the point where Anne says, "I know how you can help, James. Undress and put this on. I'll leave you alone to change." Anne gave me the t-shirt, and she went into the bathroom. A couple of minutes later, she re-entered the room, just as I was covering my own nudity with the t-shirt. Anne smiled, saying nothing. She led me behind the screen, pretending that the screen was obscuring us, but not by much to the audience. She lifted the t-shirt off me, dropped her robe. "I'm not Murray's wife anymore, Jason," she whispered to me. Whispering made it sort of conspiratorial. I suppose she was whispering because she was going off script. Her whispering, and telling me with the whisper that she no longer was committed to Murray, turned me on ferociously just then. Maybe she knew about my rule that wives of my colleagues were forbidden. Anne was no longer married. She was no longer forbidden. She was available. That dawned on me suddenly, and for the first time. I felt like this was not happening. I was in a dream. I behaved. I followed the script, kissing her, fondling her. She felt wonderful. When we finished, I expected Anne to collapse onto the bed, to express her love for me and to tell me she had never thought it could be so very good. I expected her to tell me how she was so glad that she was finally deflowered, and glad that it was I who had had the pleasure of making a woman out of her. Then I thought she would kiss me all over. I hoped she would tell me she wanted more, that she wanted to do it again. None of that happened. Instead, Anne quickly got up to a standing position and recited her lines. I was destroyed that she could manage to stay in character, but she did. What a woman. I recited my lines too, and we ended the scene. Only then did Anne flop onto her back on the bed and said, "Oh, Jason, that was wonderful. You were wonderful. For a time there I thought you actually loved me. You were so sweet to say it too. It put me at ease." "I do love you, you moron," I said. We made love twice more, trying out different positions. Anne spent the night. She called up her friend Sarah, with whom she was staying, now that Murray had kicked her out, explaining she would not be home. I heard the hubba-hubba over the phone from Sarah, and Anne giggled in reply. Then I heard Anne say, "Good guess, Sarah. See you tomorrow, okay?" The next morning, after a lazy good morning roll in the hay, Anne dropped another bombshell. She wanted to practice exhibitionism. I was not expecting that. She did not just want the risk of being caught. She actually wanted to have a real voyeur. "It's my last step towards getting into character for the play," she said. "Will you help me? Martha is with Steve, so maybe, if you do not mind once more." I told Anne I loved her, not Martha. That was over. Anne replied, "Jason, you still love Martha. Martha still loves you. Steve is just a tool for Martha to get you back. She does not want you back until you get over me. All this is obvious to everyone, except, I guess, to you." Anne continued, "You don't love me, Jason. You just want to lay me. You know that, I know that, and Martha knows that. Well, you're getting your wish, aren't you? And I'm asking you for another one tonight, okay?" I decided just to shut up. I nodded my assent. Anne had rented a tiny apartment since the divorce had left her without a place to stay. She had almost nothing in it, which is why she was staying with her friend Sarah. I don't have curtains yet, and I've been practicing walking around topless inside it, especially at night with all of my lights on. By now, I probably have a dedicated collection of voyeurs, don't you think? "Yes, I do. You want to do it by the window, is that your idea?" "Ooh, Mr. J. Blaine, your mind is so deliciously naughty. No, that was not my idea, but to hell with my idea. Let's do yours." Anne's eyes were twinkling with mischief. She was not doing this reluctantly, because she felt she needed to, in order to understand her character in the play. No, she was doing this because she was now into it. Anne had herself become an exhibitionist. The play was just an excuse. That night I went over to her apartment. She was completely dressed. Her dress was normal, not especially hot. She had made us dinner. She served it with a tablecloth, cloth napkins, and 2 candles on the table. It was a textbook romance. I ate it up. We cleared the table together, and following her instructions, I watched while she stood in the window back to the glass. I stood in front of her and slowly undressed her, stopping to kiss her. Once she was naked, I turned her around. My hands drifted south. The anger or contempt in her voice was a huge turn-on for me. "You'd better put on a good show. We have quite the audience," she said. Suddenly I saw she had her cell phone on the table. She had just got a text and all it said was a number, 11. I learned later that she had enlisted a neighbor to count for her the number of people watching her display from across the way. Always an actress, she wanted to know the size of her audience even as we made love on her butcher block table in the window. When we were done, Anne said, "Let's do it again, you should be good for it." Anne's cell phone buzzed. Her neighbor had texted, "They're all applauding." Anne smiled. After that night I realized that Anne was more than a handful. What she said about Martha kept bouncing around in my head. Anne wanted more from me. It was okay, I was having a good time. All right, I'll be honest, I was having the time of my life. I had a lot of fun helping Anne get into character. I went to her bar every night. People kept ordering more and more drinks in order to get her to return to their tables. I overheard one man at the next table say, "Let's ask what time she gets off work." They asked. She told them. I knew this was Anne's plan. She wanted to try random men before she had to perform that dreaded scene with the male lead. She wanted to experience it with a man she did not know, one she did not care for. That was her thinking anyway. Personally, I thought she was nuts. The men did indeed ask her what time she got off work. Luckily, the men were at the neighboring table, so I could tell who they were. However, there were two of them. I assumed she had chosen one of them. Silly me. She told them that her shift ended at 11 p.m. At 11 p.m., Anne changed into her street clothes and the men were hovering at the bar's exit. There's a special door for the employees on the side, so Anne surprised them when she came to them from an unexpected direction. She met them at the main entrance to the bar. "Waiting for me, boys?" she asked, giggling nervously. The creeps offered her money, asking her price. I could see that this took Anne by surprise. She covered her surprise well. She really is a good actress. She winked at me and she said, "It's $5,000 per man. $10,000 if you want me to do both of you." Undeterred, the first man, Craig, said, $5,000 for both of us. Your pervert friend can watch if he wants. I could tell Anne was shocked that these men could casually pay $5,000 to sleep with her. Of course, they were bargaining, offering her only half of her asking price. "Are you disease-free? You need to use protection," Anne said. The men claimed to be disease-free and agreed to her offer. "You pay for the hotel room too, boys. Can we compromise? $7,500 for both of you." The men agreed. I myself was shocked in so many different ways I could not count them all just then. The three of them went to a nearby hotel. I followed for a little bit, so I overheard Anne say, "No, I want the Trump Soho." She told me later that she liked the idea of doing it in a Trump hotel. I don't know why, maybe it was for the perversion aspect. This was a side of Anne I had not yet seen. There seemed to be layers upon layers of Anne. She was a complicated woman. I guess most good actresses are, after all. I watched the three of them walk off together, each man with an arm around Anne, who was walking in between them. My emotions were a mess as I watched the woman I thought I loved sell herself, just to better understand her character in the play. Who was this woman I thought I knew and loved? The next day, Anne dropped over. She was a total mess. She could not stop crying. I finally learned that everything went fine with the two men. She showed me the $7,500. "Tax-free too," she said. Anne was having trouble dealing with having been a wench for the night. She could not come to terms with it. She would have been happy to have let the men lay her for free. It was taking the money that freaked her out. I did not know what to say to comfort her. The play was a huge success. The critics panned Jay Blaine's dialogue, even if Anne thought it was brilliant. On the other hand, they loved the play overall, and they praised Anne to the high heavens. The critics said that she was the brightest young star on the New York thespian scene. They admired her courage, as well as her acting talent. Every show was a sellout. I don't think the brilliant dialogue written by one Jay Blaine was the key draw for the play. I went to every performance. I'm the playwright after all. The documentation disclaimed that everything was simulated, but I of course knew that it wasn't. Most of the audience knew too, I suspect. I watched my sweet Anne do it every single night, usually with the male lead, but he would get worn out and then the understudy would replace him at the next performance. She was doing what I had written her to do after all. Anne, in contrast, never seemed to get worn out. She would come over to my place after each and every performance. On Mondays, when the play was not performed, she would make dinner for me at her place, and then we would openly do it in her window. Her regular voyeurs now owned binoculars. One guy had a camera with a telephoto lens that probably could have taken close-ups of the man on the moon. Things were getting out of control. Anne became a star. She was the talk of the town and most definitely the talk of the internet. Illegal pictures were everywhere on the internet. Pictures of her, strictly forbidden by the theater to be taken, nevertheless were secretly taken and circulated on the web. This made the clamor to see her in the play even more intense. People were scalping tickets to the tiny Greenwich Village theater. There was also a picture, and also a short video of her with the male lead, without the deniability provided by the partially transparent screen. It had been taken secretly by a backstage crew member, and sold to a British tabloid. That too made it to the web, and she stole the spotlight from other starlets who had been betrayed by a boyfriend in similar ways, usually with a supposedly private tape. Now everyone knew it was real. Anne became a celebrity, and she was offered starring roles on Broadway. The small Greenwich Village Theater let her take one of those roles, as there were actresses galore clamoring to take her place. The play ran for a year before a new mayor shut it down. A couple copulating on stage was just too much, even for the relaxed morals of New York. Nobody any longer believed it had been a simulated act, thanks to that goddamn backstage crew guy. Nudity was okay, self-pleasure was okay. Actual act? No. Murray became a wreck. I never wrote another play. I went to see my play with the new actress replacing Anne. She was just as good as Anne had been. One difference was that this new actress did not come over to my place afterwards for an after-theater act. She did not even know me. The new actress was every bit as good as Anne was, but it was Anne who created the role, and it was Anne who became a star. Her replacement became a well-known actress, but she did not become nearly the star of the stage that Anne had already become. Anne stopped returning my phone calls. Martha and Steve broke up. I waited a couple of months, and I asked to meet Martha. I was over Anne. I was totally over Anne. My torch for Anne was now buried the requisite full 6 feet. I was very nervous on my first date with the lovely Martha. So was Martha. I was not sure how I felt about her having shacked up with Steve. I could imagine them screwing on a daily basis. The thought of that made me want to retch. Martha, on the other hand, felt equally insecure. She knew what I had been up to with Anne. Apparently, Anne had given blow-by-blow accounts of our adventures to her friend Sarah, and Sarah had spilled the beans regularly to Martha. Martha did love me, but she felt she could not measure up to Anne. Martha and I took it slow. For our first date, I took her to the movies. We held hands as I walked her back to her apartment, and I kissed her at her door. She told me later she would never forget how I gently pulled her into me and then softly kissed her, caressing her lips. That kiss itself told her I loved her. It was not lying either. The second date I wanted to impress her, and I took her to my favorite, elegant village restaurant. It was a romantic meal, and while we were waiting for dessert, I gave her a small set of gold bangle bracelets. She immediately put them on, blushed, and leaned over the table and kissed me. When she leaned over to kiss me, she knocked over my glass, spilling the drink all over my suit pants. We actually giggled while we kissed. Martha said, "I could lick it off your pants, you know, if you want." I replied, "Sadly, it has not penetrated down to what's underneath my pants." "I could lick that anyway," she said. "I'm sure I'll love the taste, you know." "You're on," I replied. "Is that a dare?" Martha asked, her eyes twinkling. "I never refuse a dare." "It's a dare," I said, smiling mischievously, "and I dare you to do it naked." Martha raised a single eyebrow. "It's time to go, my love," Martha said. We ate dessert, I paid the bill, and Martha led me off to her apartment. Her apartment, on the 14th floor of a Greenwich Village building on Washington Place, has a little balcony high above Broadway. Anyone in the street could see it if they looked up. Luckily nobody, or at least almost nobody, looked up. The people who would be most likely to notice lived directly across the street. Martha and I married, and she is now pregnant with our first child. She looks even more beautiful while she is pregnant. She is 4 months pregnant, and her skin has a rosy glow to it. Her belly button has begun to stick out. She is radiantly happy all the time. I'm still a boring and bored junior executive. Martha and I haunt the theater on the weekends, both movies and especially mound plays. We have yet to see a play on Broadway starring Anne, but Martha has tickets to one. We're going next weekend. I believe Anne stays clothed in the play, but I guess we'll know for sure next weekend. I heard that at one point her costume falls away revealing a naked breast. Not at all like the exposure she gave in Jay Blaine's masterpiece, but hey, I'll take it. One thing is certain, after the play out on her balcony high above Broadway, Martha will certainly not stay clothed. I intend to see to that, personally. Closer to Christmas, Anne threw a Christmas party. She invited her close friends, Martha, Sarah, Murray, me, and a few others, and the entire cast and crew of the original play that had made her a star. We all had to come in costume, and of course Anne came as a Santa's helper. Martha, who was small, came as an elf, and Murray came as Santa Claus himself. He was one of 5 Santas at the party. I did not know what to dress as. I bought a snowman outfit and came as a snowman, even if New York had not yet received any snow that winter. The male lead and his understudy, one of whom did Anne at every performance, were also there. Martha kept a close eye on me. I think she wanted to make sure I was over Anne. Anne was glowing, and she looked as hot as I had ever seen her in her Santa helper outfit. Anne came across as a sweet, innocent thing who did not fully realize what she was doing. It was an illusion. She knew all right. She knew in spades. When she saw me after we entered, she came over to me and gave me a big hug. My chest got a very nice feel of her chest, mediated through my costume. After Anne's hug, and all the old emotions it brought to the surface like acid reflux after Mexican food, I clung to Martha. And Martha took me aside and planted a huge kiss on my lips. She was claiming me, and I loved it. Martha was more than enough woman for this man. The real object of Anne's party was not me, Jason. Nor was it me, Jay Blaine. I was worried Anne was going to out me as Jay Blaine, but she did not. No, the real object was Murray. At first I thought Anne wanted to taunt Murray and show him how stupid he had been to have lost her. I was dreading that. I was wrong once again. Anne threw the party with Murray in mind, yes. What she wanted, however, was to win Murray back. Murray had not brought a date to the party. He wanted to, but when his date, a nice woman named Mary Ann, learned Murray's ex-wife was throwing the party, she backed out. So, Murray was there with Martha and me, but without his own woman. Anne gave him a big smile when he entered alone. No sane person, man or woman, could resist such a smile. Murray is sane. Anne did not even have to make an effort. The moment Murray was hit with that smile, I knew he was hers. The smile said, "All my life I have waited for you to come into my life, and now here you are. I love you with all my heart and all my soul." That's a lot to say in one smile. Anne is the only person I know who can say all that in a smile. Anne flirted and showed off her body throughout the party. She was too smart to try to flirt with me while Martha was there, but she flirted with the former adult actor, his understudy, and some of the stage crew. At one point she whispered something to her best friend Sarah, and Sarah took over taking charge of the party. While Sarah was making announcements, Anne quietly led Murray off to the bedroom, where everyone had thrown their coats on the bed. I slipped away at one point during the party, and I put my ear to the bedroom door. I heard Anne's signature moans. I used to live to hear Anne moan. Now I just thought, good for Murray, good for Anne. I went over to Martha to give her the news. "Merry Christmas, my love," she said. Martha kissed me and felt my excitement. "Is this for me or for Anne?" Martha said. Too smart to fall for that, I simply kissed her, pouring my love down her throat. The costume had a zipper down the front. I had been fascinated by that zipper ever since she put on the outfit without a bra. Martha had suggestively lowered the zipper a bit. I was tempted. We were at a party, though, but Martha is an exhibitionist. I felt as if there were a good angel on one shoulder and a bad angel on the other. And then there was that damn zipper. It called to me. The zipper was screaming in my ear. It was Christmas Day. If ever there was a time for the good angel to win, it was then. I unzipped her elf costume as we kissed. I did it with a gentle touch, and I think Martha was unaware I was doing it. To hell with the good angel. "Take me home, you bastard, and stop trying to earn your moniker," Martha replied. "I love you, my hot little elf," I said. "Let's claim Anne's bedroom when she and Murray are done." "No, take me home. Anne and Murray will not be done tonight. They have to make up for years of abstinence with each other, and I need you now," Martha replied. I took her home. We didn't come back up for air until Boxing Day. Anne and Murray came up for air around New Year's Day as far as we could tell. They make a nice couple. The four of us went out for brunch on New Year's Day. Murray looked exhausted, and Anne looked radiant. I had eyes, however, only for Martha.